So first of all, I want to thank you for this invitation. I'm sorry that I cannot be there. I would have liked very much to hear what you are all saying, the excellent work you are doing, the issues you are facing and exchanging. As a matter of fact, I am not here to send a final message on anything. I am only learning about this job and this position. So maybe what I have are mostly questions that I myself have been considering when I was somehow or other connected to the social apostolate in Japan or in dialogue with Jesuits working in this apostolate. The first question I have heard for a long time is about communication. We have wonderful documents in General Congregation 32, 33, 34, but I have also found difficulty in our community sometimes to either to grasp the message or to welcome it as something that really comes straight to the people. So maybe we need an effort at how to communicate what we see, what has become so much part of ourselves, but to communicate to people who have a different conception, maybe a different culture, maybe a different experience, maybe different concerns and worries. I hear, for instance, that in some parts of the world, at least, younger Jesuits today are not so interested in social apostolate like they were 20, 30 years ago. Is this serious? Is this a signal for us to reconsider things? Or is it simply a lack of communication? That we have not been able to communicate in a new language or in a very concrete way what our insights in the last congregations were. So it's a question, and I think we have to consider it. At some points in my experience of Japan, I tried to recommend and even to form a committee to reformulate, for instance, Decree 4 of Congregation 32 for today, for Japan, with concrete questions about our apostolate. And I think this is something that maybe we will have to keep doing on different degrees, maybe in different parts of the world. It's a question. The second question comes from also the experience of some of our men, some of our cooperators, about the difficulties that come with the social apostolate. In other words, can we do the work? Can we continue the work and still keep energetic and hopeful and joyful in the work? In other words, where do we get the energy to continue? The social apostolate brings us to the edges of humanity. It brings us to situations that are most difficult, very often unpleasant, where we touch the limits of human realities, human endurance, and we get easily tired. And you have heard, because it's already a word spread all around, that there is something like charity fatigue, or people are exhausted. No? And this is happening to our men, this is happening to NGOs, and so forth. So where do we keep the balance? Where do we get the energy from? You remember the scene where Jesus comes down from the mountain of the Transfiguration, and there is this young man who is sick, and the disciples have tried and couldn't do anything. And at the end they ask Jesus, well, why we couldn't and you could? Huh? And Jesus tells them, well, this kind are driven away only by prayer. So my question is not whether we pray or not. I take for granted that you pray one way or another. My question is, how do we pray? No? When we are working at the edge of humanity in difficult situations, difficult work, can we pray in such a way that this prayer is really a source of energy? Do we rest? Can prayer become a way of resting in the Lord? How do we keep our peace of mind? How do we continue being filled with energy so that we can continue loving, serving, and hoping? So these are questions that I think are extremely important. And as you know, a number of our men, probably some of you there, have tried to integrate into their social apostolate recently a strong dimension of spirituality. I have seen that happening also in Japan, and not only for Christians, but even for non-Christians. There is a need of going to the sources so that we continue being energized and energized by the Spirit. This would be my second question, but I consider a very important question. The third question is connected to this, and it's a question, we would say, if this second question has to do with how do we come to the sources inside us, the third question would be, how do we educate and nourish our joy and our hope and our sense of celebration from outside also, right? From the people with whom we are working. We have to live and give life. But for this, we need sources. And sources of energy that come from the life of the people, their experiences, their sense of celebration. One of the things I learned in the Philippines is precisely that the poor know where they get the energy. And that's why they are so fond of fiesta, of celebration, of coming together, eating, drinking, dancing and singing. These would be the three celebrating factors of any Filipino community. Eating first, dancing and singing. So are we able, we Jesuits, the intellectual Jesuits, are we able to join the people and draw from there again the energy they are getting? And that includes also our sacraments. Our sacraments, our Eucharist, sources of energy. Do we celebrate? Are they a help for people to continue in the journey, to continue sharing, to continue forgiving, to continue moving ahead? When I was teaching sacraments, I remember that I like to quote Congar when he said that unless we bring our life to the Eucharist will not help us with our life. So I think this is a challenge, not only for the social apostolate, of course, it's a challenge for our religious communities. No? So do we celebrate the Eucharist in such a way that it's good to go there because we come energized, renewed, and with a new sense of belonging, and also the desire to continue the struggle or the dialogue or the communication or whatever comes our way. That would be my third question. Another question that comes, speaking of the social apostolate and related to what I mentioned before, that I'm hearing that our young Jesuits are not so interested now in joining the social apostolate, would be how do we elicit vocations for this apostolate? I have seen, both in Japan and the Philippines, how the people in education have moved to a more aggressive invitation to the younger men and organize even programs to present to our younger Jesuits what it means to educate today. New models, new challenges, so that they feel that this is a mission worth entering. No? Are we doing the same with the social apostolate? Maybe not. And that's why maybe people do not see either the relevance or the peculiarities of Jesuit involvement in social apostolate, or the depth of the ministries we are doing, or whatever it is. But I think this is a very important issue. This is a very important question that we have